November 1942. The North African desert. In the darkness of night, the horizon glows as if engulfed in flames. This marks the beginning of one of the largest artillery bombardments history had witnessed up to that point. 800 guns fire simultaneously at the same target. A moment when the earth trembles, the air burns, and even the sand melts. On the other side, a German commander lies sick in a beach hut. Rommel, the legend of Africa, the desert fox. But tonight, the fox is cornered. For 2 years, no one in North Africa could stop this man. But now he has fallen below critical levels of ammunition, fuel, and manpower. Yet he is still here, still in command. Facing him is a British army that, for the first time in history, is truly prepared, numerically superior, and highly motivated. Their commander, Bernard Montgomery, is the kind of general the Allies have been waiting for years. So, will this battle be as simple as the math suggests? Or will Rommel, even in the face of death, change the course of history once again? That is the question this video asks. And the answer lies buried beneath the sands of the desert. This battle is between two different forces. On one side, the Allied forces under British command, the 8th Army, consisting of troops from England, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and India. On the other side, the Axis Group, consisting of the German Afrika Korps and Italian forces, officially known as the Panzer Army Africa. So this is not just a war between Britain and Germany. It is the ultimate showdown between two different alliances, two different visions over North Africa. Alamein, a small station town on Egypt's Mediterranean coast. For most people today, it's just an ordinary name. But in 1942, this name had vital significance for the entire world. Dates: October 23rd to November 4th, 1942. Duration: 12 days. This short period of time was one of the turning points that determined the fate of World War II. The location is strategically unique. North of El Alamein lies the Mediterranean Sea, while to the south is the impassable Qattara Depression. This means the front line is confined to a narrow corridor, just 60 kilometers wide. Flanking maneuvers are impossible. This presents both advantages and disadvantages for both sides. The battle will inevitably become a test of strength along the front line. A small but important note: El Alamein actually consists of two separate battles. The first battle, in July 1942, halted Rommel's attempt to reach Cairo. What we are discussing today is the second battle of El Alamein in October to November 1942, the battle that sealed the fate of the Axis powers in North Africa. And let's also note this: Cairo is only 100 kilometers away from El Alamein. So if this front had fallen, the Suez Canal, the oil resources of the Middle East, and all of North Africa could have fallen into the hands of the Axis powers. Field analysis. The desert appears to be a neutral battlefield, but at El Alamein, the geography is anything but neutral. The Qattara Depression is a natural barrier consisting of a salt marsh and sea of sand extending 130 meters below sea level. No vehicle can pass through here. This effectively locks down the southern flank. It makes the flanking maneuver, historically, the decisive weapon in North African warfare, completely impossible. This narrow corridor is advantageous for the British. They can concentrate their numerical superiority along a decisive line. Rommel's ingenious flanking tactics will not work here. He was a commander who always exploited gaps, found the enemy's weak points, and moved quickly. But there are no gaps at El Alamein. On the other hand, the Axis forces had prepared their defense thoroughly. Minefields called the Devil's Gardens, consisting of about 500,000 mines, stretched across the entire front. Crossing these fields required a separate battle in itself. The terrain was also important. The hard desert crust allowed tanks to advance quickly in some areas, while in others, the sand deepened and immobilized the vehicles. The British knew this terrain much better because they had been stationed there for a long time. Conclusion: geography favored the British. Rommel could not choose the battlefield. He was forced into defense, and defense was not his style. Comparison of forces. Now let's look at the numbers. And these numbers seem to tell the fate of the war from the outset. Or so it appears. Montgomery, commanding the British 8th Army, enters the field with approximately 195,000 soldiers, 1,500 tanks, and 1,200 aircraft. Supply lines are operational. There is fuel. There is ammunition. Every day, ships bring reinforcements across the Mediterranean. Rommel's Africa Corps, on the other hand, is trying to stand against this force with approximately 110,000 soldiers, 550 tanks, and 600 aircraft. Moreover, a significant portion of this force consists of Italian troops. Their motivation and equipment lag behind those of the German troops. The fuel situation is critical. Most of Rommel's supply ships have been sunk in the Mediterranean by British submarines and air force. Some days, the tanks cannot even move. Looking at this picture, it is possible to say that mathematics is on Montgomery's side. Power is in the hands of the British. For the British to lose the war, they would have to make a really big mistake. But that's where the mystery begins. Rommel has something that cannot be explained by mathematics. The man knows how to create something out of nothing. Since arriving in Africa, he has consistently done the illogical and won against superior forces and while experiencing supply problems. Now, in the worst conditions, he has risen from his sickbed and returned to the front. Montgomery knows this. And that's why, despite his numerical superiority, he is advancing with extreme caution, planning, and patience. Because acting hastily against Rommel is a mistake that has been paid for many times in a history. Preparation phase. The commanders of both sides are equally interesting characters. Bernard Law Montgomery, the newly appointed commander of the British 8th Army. Meticulous, methodical, averse to arrogance. He explains everything to his troops in detail. Why we are fighting, how we will win, what to expect. The soldiers trust him. Tired of constantly retreating under previous commanders, these men feel truly prepared for the first time. Montgomery's strategy. Operation Lightfoot, followed by Operation Supercharge. First, corridors would be opened through the minefields. Then the infantry would advance, followed by armored units passing through these corridors to break the enemy's defenses. It was a multi-layered, multi-stage plan, requiring patience. Rommel, meanwhile, had gone to Germany for treatment due to his illness, but rushed to the front as soon as the battle began. What binds him to this battlefield is neither orders nor a sense of duty. He feels this desert as his own homeland. Rommel's approach to command is the exact opposite of Montgomery's. Instant decisions, swift action, initiative. He relies on observation, not plans. He acts based on what he sees on the ground. This approach had worked miracles in the past. But now, the resources at his disposal no longer support this style. His relationship with the German High Command is also tense. Hitler rejects every order to retreat. The order, hold or die, comes from Berlin. Rommel, knowing the military reality, is caught between carrying out these orders and protecting his men. The commanders of the Italian allies are names overshadowed by Rommel. Some of their units fight bravely, but logistical support and equipment shortages limit them from the outset. Chronology of the war. October 23rd, 1942. 9:45. Montgomery launches the storm. At 9:40 p.m., 800 guns open fire simultaneously. For 20 minutes, Axis positions are subjected to hellish fire. Infantry units then enter the minefields. Australian and New Zealand troops, nicknamed Rats, take on the heaviest tasks. This arduous advance throughout the night opens the first corridors, but it is slower than expected. The minefields are very deep, the resistance very fierce. October 24th to 25th, 1942. First crisis armored units suffer heavy losses passing through the mine corridors. The second phase of the plan is delayed. Montgomery sticks to the plan despite pressure from impatient generals. "We will not rush," he says. This calmness is critical, because on the other side, even Rommel cannot yet see the full picture. October 26th to 27th, 1942. Rommel on the front. Rommel returns from Germany at midnight. and immediately takes command. He launches a swift counterattack. This move, which pushes back the British armored units, creates a brief balance. But the losses are heavy, and fuel is running out fast. October 28th to 31st, 1942. The clock is ticking. Montgomery directs Australian troops to the northern flank. This move draws Rommel's attention northward. It is actually a diversion. The real blow will come from another point. Rommel senses this, but his forces are greatly diminished. With each passing day, the Axis front is becoming thinner and thinner. November 2nd, 1942. Operation Supercharge, the beginning of the end. Montgomery launches his final move. An armored column composed of British, New Zealand, and Indian troops pierces Rommel's defenses at their weakest point. This time the minefields have been cleared, opening a corridor. Tanks pour through. German infantry and tanks resist, but the numerical difference has become an insurmountable chasm. November 3rd to 4th, in 1942. Hitler's order to Rommel. Rommel is about to order a retreat to save his army. Just then, Hitler's order arrives from Berlin. Hold, no retreat, victory, or death. Rommel tries to obey this order. However, the front has now completely collapsed. After hours of heavy losses, Rommel finally disobeys the order and initiates a retreat. But this comes at a great cost. Thousands of soldiers, hundreds of tanks, and heavy artillery are left behind. November 4th, 1942. El Alamein falls. Montgomery's forces completely capture El Alamein. The Afrika Korps begins a long retreat westward. This retreat is no longer tactical. It is an decisive, strategic, and psychological impact. To understand the consequences of El Alamein, one must ask, what would have happened if Rommel had captured this location? The Suez Canal would have fallen under Axis control. This would have severed Britain's connection to India and the Far East. Middle Eastern oil resources, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, could have fallen into German hands. And without these resources, the British and American war machine would have been unsustainable. The course of the war could have redrawn the entire world map. But this did not happen. Instead, the Afrika Korps began its long retreat to Tunisia. In November 1942, American forces landed in North Africa, Operation Torch. Within 6 months, all Axis forces were expelled from North Africa. And in 1943, the Allies were able to strike at the heart of Europe, via Sicily. The psychological impact was as great as the strategic impact. Until this battle, the British people and army had been weary from constant defeat against Rommel. After El Alamein, Winston Churchill said, "This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is perhaps the end of the beginning." For Rommel, however, this was truly the end. After Africa, he never achieved another strategic victory. His name had become legendary, but legends also come to an end. The psychological collapse on the German front should not be underestimated either. This defeat, which occurred almost simultaneously with Stalingrad, signaled that Germany was retreating to a defensive position on both fronts. El Alamein is an example of something rarely seen in military history, a battle that went exactly as it planned. Montgomery did not surprise anyone. He won. He did not deceive you. He gathered overwhelming force and applied it systematically. This seems simple, but such disciplined execution is extremely rare in military history. What invalidated Rommel's ingenious tactics was not so much Montgomery's genius as his meticulous discipline. Rommel, meanwhile, perhaps deserves the title of the commander who held out the longest under impossible conditions in history. Despite being without fuel, ammunition, sick, and vastly outnumbered, he resisted for 12 days. The price of this resistance was heavy. Thousands of people lost their lives. But he did not resign himself to his fate. El Alamein is still like a place of pilgrimage today. British, Australian, New Zealand, South African, and Indian flags fly here. And the German graves are there too. People who once came to kill each other now lie in the same desert soil. Britain won this war, but everyone who died here gave their lives for their beliefs. History does not judge them. Neither will we. What remains of El Alamein is this: power, planning, and patience. When these three come together, even legends fall. In our next video, we take you to a very different geography, a very different war. 1944. Holland, a bridge. And one of the boldest and most controversial moves in history to capture that bridge. Thousands of paratroopers descend deep into enemy lines. The plan looks perfect. But there's one thing the plan didn't account for. See you in the next video. We're waiting for the bridge.